It's Mayhem in Knoxville, and teams may be seeing gold at the Torian Pro. Tia-Clair, Toomey, and Saunders could be setting up another battle at the Games, while several newcomers are leading the way on the men's side. That and much more on Game Central. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Game Central. Derek Forrest along with Neil Maddox, and we're taking a look at day one in the books out in Australia at the Torian Pro. Neil, what's it like just seeing live competition once again?
Man, this is a moment all these athletes have been waiting for all year long, is to get live in a stadium with a live crowd. Not only that, out of your gym to compete. And I'm so fired up. I'm so excited. I'm waiting for day two, day three, the whole 9 yards.
I think everybody is. The crowds have been outstanding out in Australia as everybody gets ready for semifinals. And of course, the individual competition is presented by Ram Truck, the 2021 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Visit ram.com to learn more. So let's take a look at the setup in Australia for the Torian Pro. You've got 3 qualifiers for the men, 3 for the women, and 3 for teams. And as far as the last chance qualifier goes, you have 3 men and 3 women heading over to that. So in terms of events, had 2 events on day one. Event 1 was the reverse triathlon. It's a 5K run, 7K bike, and a 2K row for time. And then event 2 was a man to 21, 21 muscle ups and 21 squat snatches, 65 kilo and 45 kilo for the men and the women respectively. You wanna translate those kilos for me, Neil?
Yeah. If you aren't familiar with kilos at home, 1 kilo mass is equal to 2.2 pounds. So when you look on the men's side, it's 65 kilos, which is going to convert to 145 pounds. And the women's side is going to be 45 kilos, which converts to 100 pounds.
All right, so when you look at the events that took place in day one out in Australia, what stood out?
What stood out to me on day one with the events was whoever came off the run and took that lead in the run and led into the bike, maintained that lead all the way through, or actually shuffled maybe 1 or 2 spots. And if we look at, and if we go down to the Amanda 21, that right there, if you were able to string together your muscle ups fast and efficient, and you're able to grip and rip like we saw with one of our dominant games athletes on that workout, you're going to see who's going to be able to come out on top.
Yeah, let's hear from the guys who were out there seeing it live. Jeremy Austin and Pip Malone had the call, and they wrap up day one.
Great first day of competition here at the Torian Pro for the Oceania semi-final, and a big surprise packet in the male competition with Matt Gilpin, our Brisbane local, jumping into first position over the top of Jay Crouch and Baden Brown. Few surprises as well for the female competition.
There were a few surprises, but the best moment of the day for me was Jessica Coughlin, 11 years in the sport, and she got her first event win here today, and it was an amazing moment.
Absolutely amazing moment. More coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, so here are the overall standings. They mentioned Jessica Coughlin. You see her in 5th, but of course, atop the leaderboard is Saunders. Behind her, 18 points behind, is Ellie Turner. Then you see Gemma Hawk, and Laura Clifton is there in 4th. Now, Saunders crushed it at Amanda 21, doing it unbroken and doing it in front of a live audience, and she talked about it after her performance.
I wasn't gonna go unbroken because I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be fine. And the people got me going, and they're like, you want to see it go unbroken? I'm like, all right, I'll give it to you. I was like, oh, I could just like do a 4 and 3, but I'm like, there's no fun in that, so.
Really no surprise to see her atop the leaderboard. What did you like about her performance on day one?
Oh, when I was looking at her performance, she's locked and loaded. She's looking like her old game self, and she's ready to just rock and roll. What I really liked about her performance was on the Amanda 21 is that she just gripped and ripped that bar, and she wasn't going to let it go. She was feeling the energy, feeling the vibe, and that's exactly what she's going to do, is go roll through that energy right into the games, and I guarantee we'll see her there.
And maybe less pressure on her because Tia-Clair Toomey is not there. She's at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. So let's take a look at the overall standings for the men. Unknown name here, Matt Gilpin in 1st. Jay Crouch, though, right behind him in 2nd. Luke DeJong in 3rd. And then sitting in 4th place is Luke McMahon. Let's talk about Jay Crouch. It seems like there could be a changing of the guard here between him and James Newbury. Crouch in second, Newbury in 14th right now.
Like, I do not want to pass up Matt Gilman, but if we talk about Jay Crouch right now, Jay Crouch impressed me because he placed in the top 10, but not only that, he's sitting in a good place right now. Second place, where he's right there in striking distance to take that #1 spot. Now, if we turn over to James Newbury, you know, everybody would expect him to be at the top of the leaderboard. We don't see him at the top of the leaderboard currently right now. That could have been, you know, a couple of different things. One, he had a couple of injuries that he was fighting through this year, but not only that, he's been training for the bobsled team. So by taking his focus off the CrossFit Games a little bit, you actually can see that kind of hindered him a little bit because he's sitting outside the top 10.
Yeah, good start for Jay Crouch, sitting in second as they head into day 2 out in Australia. Now let's take a look at the teams and what they had to endure during day 1. Very similar to the individuals. Team event 1 was Amanda 21, which was 21 muscle ups and 21 squat snatches. And then team event 2, 4-time, a 1K run, a 3K bike, and a 500-meter row. Let's talk about those events, break it down, and what did you see on day 2, Neil, or day 1?
Well, on day 1, the teams that were in synchronized with the bar muscle ups and synchronized with the snatches were the ones who came out on top. When it came down to pretty much the short triathlon that they were doing right there, a shorter version of the individuals, it came down to who was able to maintain that steady pace, but not only that, push their partners onto that rower, onto that other object faster. Those teams stayed on top pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, let's take a look at those teams who did well in events 1 and 2. After day 1, Urban sits atop the leaderboard, 6'4" Army Gold in second, Reebok CrossFit Frankson in third, 6'4" Army Steel in fourth, and then Al-Asad is in fifth. But speaking of 6'4" Army Gold, they did pretty well, and we caught up with their head coach, and he talked about their performance after day 1.
I'm just happy to be here first and foremost. Pretty, overwhelmed and chuffed that we've got so many people actually out here competing. And then not only that, they actually place pretty well. There's like a bunch of different kind of temperaments and personalities you got to manage and things like that, and performances and outcomes and expectations. But above all, just like super stoked to be able to get an on-site competition. I know that we're very lucky to do so, and even like now that we're here, hearing that a Melbourne team missed out on coming, it's a little bit unfortunate. So we're just going to make the most of what we get to.
And of course, he talked about the number of teams they have competing. 4 6'4" Army teams, 2 of them in the top 5. That is 6'4" Army Gold and 6'4" Army Steel.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this reminds me of Blast from the Past. This reminds me of CrossFit Mayhem, which had multiple teams. Not only that, CrossFit Invictus, which had multiple teams go to the games. So when I'm looking at 64 Army Gold, you guys know about them in the quarterfinals because they dominated. They're currently sitting in second place, but then if we look at 64 Army Steel, they're sitting in fourth place. So they're both in striking distance to get themselves on that podium to get to the games.
All right, Neil, so looking ahead to day 2, just what are some workouts that could be a separator as we go into the weekend?
When I'm looking at the individual men and females, I'm looking at double trouble. Double trouble has a drag rope, and that's being introduced. So a couple of trip ups on that drag rope, and you get that fatigue in the shoulders, that can set you back some points. Now, if we go to the team side of things, I'm looking at the worm. They're busting out the worm, and as we can tell with the worm, if you haven't practiced with it and you aren't synchronized with your other teammates, that can cost you some serious spots. So I'm really looking at how these teams are going to attack the worm and who's been practicing, because that team will end up on top.
It's going to be exciting. We'll see who qualifies for the games at the end of the weekend. Team competition sponsored by Romwad. Improve your mobility and athletic performance with Romwad. Visit romwad.com for a 7-day free trial. But I want to thank Neil for hopping in, recapping day 1. We will see you later on in the weekend. Coming up next, though, we're bringing in China Cho as she's going to knock out day 1 of the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. All right, joining me now is China Cho to talk about the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, day 1 in the books. China, just your thoughts out of Knoxville.
It is a loaded field. We have the reigning women's champ. We got the reigning team champs. We got podium finishers from the men's side. I mean, the competition is fierce, and day one did not disappoint.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The individual competition, real quick, is presented by Ram Truck, the 2021 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Visit ram.com to learn more. But you talk about all the talent going on down in Knoxville on both the men and the women. Not a lot of spots to fill outside of like the top 4. This is what they're dealing with out of Knoxville. 5 qualifiers for both the men, the women, and the teams. The last chance qualifiers, though, you see 4 women there. That's because Tia-Clair, Toomey, and others are also participating in Knoxville, and then the standard 3 last chance qualifiers for the men. All right, so let's take a look at events 1 and 2 at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. Event 1 is 8 mile, and that was a max lift snatch. And then event 2, we saw a new element down in Knoxville, the torque tank. So let's talk about those. First, let's talk about the snatch. China, good idea to start out with a max lift to start the competition?
Absolutely. It is so exciting to watch people lift big weights, and that is exactly what happened. I mean, on the women's side, there were a handful of girls that snatched 200 pounds or more. Back 5-7 years ago, that was a great clean and jerk, so snatching it is insane. On the men's side, there were 7 men that snatched 300 pounds or more. I mean, it was a 6-way tie for second at 300 pounds. That's just insane.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable how strong these athletes are getting. And then a new element, the torque tank. You've had a chance to get your hands on new elements during games and things like that. The pig is one that stands out. This one's new. How do you adjust to a new element on the fly if you're an athlete?
I mean, I think you got to reflect back onto other implements that you've used that are similar. So for me, that would be the sled, and kind of just use the same technique on this implement. And then if it's working, continue with it. If it's like, oh, this thing isn't moving, then obviously you need to adjust on the fly.
All right, so let's check in on the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. We're going to go out to Knoxville. Sean Woodland and Tommy Marquez has a recap of day 1.
Thank you, Derek. Day 1 in the books here at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge in Knoxville, Tennessee. And on the women's side, things pretty much going as expected, at least as the very top of the leaderboard is concerned. Tia Toomey did not start out as her dominant self, but certainly showed that side in event number 2.
Absolutely. She started the day with a 3rd place finish in the snatch, mainly because she took a chance going for the outright win, didn't get that final lift, settled for a 3rd place finish, comes right back, makes a statement, dominates the next event. I mean, you see this, the early lifts, 180 on the bar, no problem for Tia, makes a 20-pound jump up to 200 pounds, puts her in position to maybe get the overall win, doesn't get it, but comes back, blows away the field in the next test. Luke Espy, the guy who programmed this event, texted me after this performance, said, Tia-Clair Toomey broke my programming. I have never heard, and as someone programming a workout, say that in my 10+ years in the sport, and it can only come from an athlete like Tia-Clair Toomey.
And she beat the top time at that point by nearly 2 minutes. And Tia Toomey is your overall leader, 192 out of a possible 200 points. Some familiar names up there with her, names we expected to see: Brooke Wells, Haley Adams, and Amanda Barnhart. But in second place, a bit of a surprise, Christine Kolenbrander, 176 points, 4 points up on Brooke Wells.
And she was the athlete that beat Tia-Clair Toomey in that snatch. She put the pressure on her, hitting a 210-pound lift early on, making the transition from team with 417 to the individual side, and so far so good.
Now the question is, can anybody slow down Tia Toomey and her march back to Madison for a possible 5th straight CrossFit Games title?
Simply put, no. I think you had your shot in that first event. You saw an uncharacteristic mistake from her, and I think she's just going to continue on her warpath the rest of the way.
It will be a fun day 2 here in Knoxville, Tennessee at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. Let's go back to the studio now with Derek and China.
So we just saw what happened in day 1, dominance by Tia-Clair Toomey, but obviously a surprise name in Christine Kolenbrander sitting in second.
I mean, she is known for her strength, and she did not disappoint. She snatched 210 pounds and made it look like 10 pounds. It was ridiculous, so easy. But she also performed really, really well on a longer workout. I know she has a gymnastics background, so chest to bar probably a decent movement for her, but combining it with that torque tank and a ton of skiing, I mean, it's so impressive that she was able to have the strength and the endurance and put it together. So it was awesome.
And sitting in the #1 spot, Tia-Clair Toomey, dominant. Just talk about her performance and your thoughts on how she performed.
Well, I mean, impressive, impressive, impressive. I don't think that there's any other word to describe her. I mean, she made the snatch look easy. I know she didn't make her third lift, but 200 pounds, that's awesome. And then she goes on to this workout and makes it look like she's not even trying at all and just breezing through everything unbroken. I mean, I wish I could do that.
And of course, props to your girl, Haley Adams, who is obviously proving that she deserves to be in the top spot. But we got to move on and talk about the men. Let's take a look at the standings after day 1 on the men's side of things. And we've got 2 newcomers atop the leaderboard right now, and that is Jayson Hopper and Zach Watts at 1 and 2. But we got a constant in Scott Panchik in 3. Justin Mederios is 4th, and Travis Mayer rounds out the top 5. Let's talk about those newcomers, though. Zach Watts is a guy out of Northern Kentucky, used to work out at CrossFit Fort Wright, but now is at CrossFit Conjugate. Finished 342nd in the Open. Strong guy, though. 470-pound back squat, 525-pound deadlift, and that seems to be the trend for the top 2. Jayson Hopper, also a strength guy.
I mean, his numbers are off the charts if you look at them on the site. Kind of cool to notice that in 2020, he finished 172nd in the Worldwide Open, and this year he was in the top 20, finishing 19th. He's definitely trending in the right direction, and it's cool to see a new name on the leaderboard.
And of course, we talk about the top 2, but you can't talk about the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge without talking about Scott Panchik and Justin Medeiros. Scott Panchik, Mr. Consistency. Again, we see him doing well, placing 3rd.
I mean, this guy has never finished outside of the top 6 at the CrossFit Games. I was very fortunate to be able to compete on a team with him at a couple of live events. And I think back in the day, his holes were in endurance. They are no longer holes. He is very fit, and I cannot wait to see how this weekend shakes out for him.
And of course, you can't forget about the reigning Rookie of the Year, Justin Medeiros, currently sitting in 4th down at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. He's showing that he's not a one-hit wonder.
Absolutely not. That 3rd place finish at the CrossFit Games was not a fluke. He snatched a great amount of weight, hitting 285. He did great on workout number 2, and I think with more events that are in his wheelhouse, he is going to shine and really make this weekend exciting.
All right, we're gonna turn our attention to the team competition down in Knoxville. Busy day on day 1. Here are the events. Event 1, OG. It was a strength event where they were testing max snatch and max clean for both the male and the female. So you got 2 scores from that one, 50 points apiece. And then event 2 was Cerebrus, which is the first time that we've seen the worm during the 2021 CrossFit Games season. So, China, when you look at those 2 events, just what are your thoughts on both of them?
So typically when the teams get a strength portion or a strength event, it's an accumulative score. So all 4 scores, you just get total pounds. Now, the men have to stand on their own 2 feet and the women have to stand on their own 2 feet, and you can't really hide anyone if there's a weak link. So I really liked that element of that workout.
All right, China, moving on to team event 2, Cerebrus. They busted out the worm. You have been on the worm a ton with CrossFit Mayhem. Rich kind of just pounds it in you guys' head. Just talk about what the pros and the cons are of using the worm.
It is very, very unforgiving. And it takes a lot of communication and a lot of teamwork. If you are just a half a second too early or a half a second too late, that thing will get completely out of whack, and then all of the weight is gonna fall onto the other team members, and that is not a fun experience. So communication is very, very important.
Yeah, we saw that a lot on day one down in Knoxville. A couple of teams did well with the worm and other teams not so much. But let's take a look at the standings after day one for the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. You see CrossFit West Chase atop the leaderboard, a 2-point lead on Lone Star CrossFit. Then you got Training Think Tank, that's out of Georgia, and Max Al-Hodge's crew. In fourth, CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. And then On Track is sitting in the 5 spot. Is it weird not seeing CrossFit Mayhem Freedom at the top of the leaderboard?
I mean, it's really early. It's only been one day. There's still a lot of points to be taken in the next 2 days of competition. They obviously did very, very well with the worm, and there are more worm events coming up, so I can't see why they won't be taking 100 points in the next couple of days.
Yeah, Mayhem Freedom taking 4th in the first event and 1st in the second event. But lastly, I want to talk about switching from the Affiliate Cup model, or switching to the Affiliate Cup model from the Super Team model. What do you like?
I like that now we're not really focused on the individuals on the team, but more the team as a whole, kind of the way that you would look at college football versus NFL.
Team competition is sponsored by Romwad. Improve your mobility and athletic performance with Romwad. Visit romwad.com for a 7-day free trial. So day one in the books at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, China. We're moving on to day 2. Just talk about those events and what are you looking forward to seeing the most?
Well, it is definitely going to be moving day tomorrow. The events are crazy. The first event is a full send 5-minute cap. The second event has a 27-minute time cap. That is going to be Endurance Central. There's running, there's muscle ups, and then on the team side, they first have an event with the worm, and then they have a relay. I'm really excited to watch this relay because now you can see the individuals shine and see how their team turns out at the end.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting weekend at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge. It's been an exciting weekend with the Torian Pro. We've seen a ton of people out there watching the live competition. Welcome back to live competition for the semifinals. And of course, that means tickets are still available for the upcoming live events. 3 of them left. CrossFit Cape Town is next week, as well as the Granite Games. Cape Town in South Africa, Granite Games is in Minnesota, and then you have the West Coast Classic that is week 4 beginning on June 18th. And of course, you can pick up your games tickets at games.crossfit.com, taking place in Madison, Wisconsin at the end of July. But that will do it for this episode of Game Central. For Neil Maddox, China Cho, and Derek Forrest, we will have coverage all weekend long. We'll recap day 2 and day 3 of all the live events taking place this weekend. But until then, we'll see you later.